Greetings everyone, welcome back to Blade Bias. Today I wanted to give you some insight on how you should upgrade your Balisong. You just got your first Balisong, you've been flipping for a little bit, but you want to get something new, something upgraded. What should you expect and how should you look for what you're doing? This is just my opinion, of course. This is not a one-size-fits-all thing, but this is what I suggest trying. And of course, as always, I recommend getting info from other people who you know or other YouTubers that you may watch, as usual. So, first of all is to manage expectations. The reality is most of the Balisongs in the sub $100 price point that you've probably already purchased, especially if you purchased in the higher end of that, the Kite AL, the Cheese, things like that, already flip pretty well. Like the balance there is pretty good. So if you're going into an upgrade expecting that you are going to spend $150 and you're going to get twice the flipping performance, you're going to be twice as good of a flipper now, it's just not the case. There is upgrades to be had. When you flip a more expensive Balisong and then you go back to something like a Cheese, you will notice a difference, a quality difference, a balance difference, whatever. But I don't think it'll be as in your face, as obvious, if you will, as some people expect. I'm not saying don't upgrade. I'm just saying if you're expecting that to be twice the flipper, it's just not the reality of cheap Balisongs anymore. They are genuinely competent flippers. I mean, Max went up on West Coast Flipping Championship and won with an Orion. That should tell you all that you need to know. So, like, you can genuinely get good with a thing you have. If you're upgrading because you think you can't be a good flipper with what you have, unless you have something like an Impulse or a Canyon, you're probably good. So, what should you expect from each different price range? If you're going from, let's say, a Cheese, let's just say you're starting with a Cheese. If you're going from a Cheese to something in $100 to $200, the real difference is kind of where it's made. You're looking at maybe some slight balance improvements. You're looking at maybe, in some cases, 70-75 aluminum, so a material upgrade. But you're mostly looking at things that are made outside of China. You know, things like the BB Barfly Barracuda, which is made in Canada. You're looking at things like the Squid Trainer, which is made in America. Stuff like that. And there are genuine improvements there, but again, it's not going to be like this crazy, oh, I spent double the money, it's going to be double the good. The Barracuda is better than the Cheese, in my opinion. The Squid Trainer is even better than the Cheese, even though it is much different. But, again, it's not like this night and day thing. So just be ready for that. Now, if you're going from a Cheese to a $200 to $300 Balisong, I think that's really where you're going to feel the most improvement, because you're starting to get into things like the Superfly, which is titanium. You're getting into things like the Kraken, which is one of the most well-regarded Balisongs of all time. You're getting into, most of the time, 70-75 aluminum, sometimes titanium. There's a feature increase. You're looking at things that are just vastly different from the beginner market. And I think that's where you're going to see the most improvement out of any upgrade that you could possibly make. Because once you go beyond that $350 to $400 price range, that's kind of where you're just paying for, you know, better production techniques, better materials used, more features. Something like the Seraph doesn't flip $500 better than the Kraken, but it is produced and it feels $500 more premium than the Kraken. You know what I mean? So you're not really looking at flipping performance once you get up there. With there's a select few Balisongs that some people will argue go above and beyond in terms of that in that higher price range, but most of the time you're looking at materials, production quality, feel in the hand, stuff like that. So I recommend personally sticking with the $100 to $300 range if you're looking to upgrade from that sub $100 range, because that's where you're really going to see the most improvement in terms of flipping, and that's probably what you're after. How do I know what to go for though? So what I want you to do is I'm going to assume if you're looking for a new Balisong, you've been flipping for a little bit, maybe a month or two, maybe a little bit longer, and you know a good decent amount of tricks. So what I want you to do is string together a combo from two things. Give me a combo where the Balisong is traveling around your fingers a lot. Maybe you do a chaplain, a full twirl, you know, a index rollover, a thumb rollover, you go back to a chaplain, anything where the balisong is traveling around your fingers in a circle, just feel that. Feel how that feels. Feel, do you like that? Do you like those style of tricks or do you not? Now, I want you to do any fans that you can do. Fan, maybe you can do a choker fan. That would be pretty crazy if you're only a few months in. Maybe you can do like a palm fan, or maybe you watch people who are really good at fans online and you're like, man, I want to do that. That is going to tell me my first thing. So do you like rollovers? Do you like fans? If you like rollovers, you want to go with something a little more handle biased. If you don't like rollovers and you like fans, you want to go with something a little more neutral. But the real thing that will tell you, because some people are like, okay, I know I want a handle bias thing. How do I know how handle bias it is? Well, if you have something like a Kite AL, that is pretty heavy handle bias in my opinion. Not heavy, but it's heavier. If you go to something like a Kraken, it's going to feel a little bit more neutral because the weight distribution is more even on that. But if you have something like an Orion and you're like, man, whenever I do rollovers, it just flies off my hand, you're going to want something a little more handle bias than that. So you're going to want to look for reviews of things that people say has a little bit of handle bias to it. If you have an Orion and you want to upgrade, you're probably looking into things like maybe the Superfly, maybe the, I was going to say the Sirius, but I think the old Sirius are much more like, maybe you're looking at like an aluminum Cygnus, I guess, but that's kind of in the same company. The Orion is a tough one to say what you want to upgrade from because there's so many different balance points. If you have like a live blade Orion, I wouldn't even recommend to upgrade it. That thing is pretty good as it stands. But if you have like a trainer Orion, it's tough to recommend something that feels similar to me. Maybe someone in the comments will have something. If you really love your Kite AL, maybe you should be looking into something like, oh gosh, what is a good, you're looking for something like maybe a G10 Wraith. Or maybe you're looking at something like a Nautilus. I wouldn't say the Nautilus is very similar to the Kite AL. If you have a cheese, I think that's pretty easy. You're looking at something like a Kraken because I think the cheese really is like a budget Kraken. Those are just some suggestions. You don't have to stick to that, obviously. Figure out if you want the Balisong to stick to your fingers on rollovers more or less. If you like the amount of momentum that it carries, like if you feel like your Balisong is hard to stop and start again, like that takes a lot of force, you might want something that carries a little bit less momentum. There's a lot of different upgrade paths you can choose, and the world really is your oyster. The most important thing is to get something that you like and that you want to spend time with flipping, because these knives can get as crazy as you are and you can represent yourself in a lot of different ways. So I think that's pretty cool. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. I missed the catch. Later.